dead stop halt to procrastination, get rid of emotional pain, suffering, whatever. I'm your oh so ostentatious, tongue-tied, ostentatious and oh so egregious host, Dr. David Snyder. Welcome. NLP Power has a long and illustrious history here in San Diego. We've been doing meetups and events free to the public for the most part since 2009, right? Right before COVID, when I was starting my doctorate in Chinese medicine, I decided I needed to step away from doing meetups for a while, just because it was just too much. I had to wait. My clinic had a waiting list 6 to 8 months long. Getting to see me was literally like winning the lottery because they actually had to use a lottery system to figure out who was going to get in. And the momentum we had built up with the meetups it just wasn't stopping, because we were taking that content, we were uploading it to YouTube and sharing it with the world, and we were getting people from all over the world coming in. And so me stuff, I had to go back and get my doctorate in Chinese medicine. It was just too much between all the classes I was teaching, the client work, and so and then COVID hit, and the whole world changed again. And so I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to reactivate these meetups, but about a year or so ago, we realized that people need to get out of their freaking houses. And if this will get even a few people out and back and living life again, rather than, you know, cowering behind their computer monitor, hoping the world will go away, or but hey, Namisha, come on in, you know, then that's something we need to do, right? Plus, it didn't hurt that I had associates who need to see clients, and clients who need associates. So that's kind of what this is about. This is your chance to kind of sample the technologies and the approaches to get simple do-it-yourself answers to some of your most pressing problems. And if the do-it-yourself approach isn't enough, we show you where you can go for more. So my goal tonight is not to put client, as much as this will disappoint Moss. You know, my goal tonight is not to put clients in my clinic, because most people can't afford me anyway. My goal is to make sure that you guys come away with something you can actually use, that you have a great experience, that you come away with something that you can use starting tonight to change your life. And then when you decide where you want to go next, you know where to go, right? It's really what it's about. I don't care if you can even spell hypnosis. I don't care if you've been in the discipline 20 years or 20 minutes. All I really care about is that you have a good attitude and a sincere desire to do the drills and get the skills. You don't have to believe a single thing that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. All you have to do is have a playful, let's see what happens attitude, do the drills, and you'll be often amazed at what kind of power you truly have locked inside of you. I've been doing this a long time, and I still have moments where I just look at what just happened in front of me and say, that shouldn't work. But it does, because there's a magic inside of us, and that magic has a structure, and it's learnable, right? And so we take baby steps, right? Some people come in and looking for a home run, and often you get them, sometimes when you least expect it. But if you can win the game on base hits, is that okay? Right? To use my manly martial sports metaphors, right? So that being said, Michael, what do you want to take home this week? What do you want to learn? Okay, we'll get to that tomorrow. Oh, all right, so you launched a business. Can I ask what that business is? Lunch Money Club. That sounds interesting. Something my daughter could probably use. She's always forgetting hers. So tell me about your Lunch Money Club. What is that about? Came to you in a dream, like so many good things do.
It's a business built to help everybody who's involved.
Okay.
Businesses can market with us for free, and then we give commissions and referrals, and it's pretty cool. And discounts with 500,000 businesses right now.
Okay, very cool. So when you say it's free lunch money or something like, how does that work?
So Lunch Money Club,
Uh-huh.
I had some health issues,
Uh-huh.
and I had problems answering questions, closing full on my sales job.
Hmm.
And so I asked this, wouldn't it be great to help people get an extra $5,000-6,000 a month?
Okay.
And I woke up at 3 a.m. I drove for nuts for 6 weeks, because every morning I'd wake up and I would write for 3 to 4 hours.
Excellent, excellent.
Amazing.
Okay, go. All right. Anybody else have, Nabisha came in late. What do you want to take away today?
Okay, I want to try out a new structure today.
A new structure?
Yeah.
Can
in
you
the
elaborate?
NLP model,
What?
in the NLP model.
A new structure and the NLP model.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
So whatever goal you have, put that goal in a certain, in a form that works for you. So for some people, a round form works. For somebody, a baseball, little ball works. So see if you're attracted to the form, because the content is in the form.
Hmm.
And if that form makes you move forward to your goal. And
Okay.
then accomplish that. It's an experiment I want to do.
Okay, so you want to experiment with people. Okay, that's scary. All right. Experiment with new format. This should be an interesting get together. There's some basis to what you're talking about, because a lot of times the vibrational fields that we use to encode our memories will often have, even though they're built from the same structure. Right? If you guys, for those of you who are new, you might not understand what this is. This is my conceptualization of a memory, or as NLP likes to say, an internal representation. An internal representation is anything you do inside your head. A thought, a fantasy, a daydream, a phobia, a trauma, a nightmare, a memory. Doesn't matter what the content of the story is. Think of them all printed on a DVD that has this structure to it. You have the structure, vibrational matrix that it's imprinted on. You have 5 channels of information, much like you'd have an audio channel, and a video channel, and you might have other like transitions and other overlays and other channels that you would compress to form a finished video, right? But in this case, you have 5, which each one corresponds to a sense. Within each of those big channels are smaller distinctions that we make. So for example, in the visual channel, we could take our video and make it black and white. We could make it full color. We could make it high def. We could make it 3D. We could make it 2D. Correct? Now, that's normal. These are what we call qualitative differences or attributes. And for most people, it never really gets beyond that understanding. But your nervous system has a little bit more going on than just, is it black and white versus color? You see, these qualitative distinctions, which are sub to the modality, right? This would be your modality or your channel, and this would be sub-elements of that channel. When all these things are combined, it creates the movie, which is the event content of your internal representation. That internal representation or that event content could be your dream. It could be you fantasizing about killing your 200-pound pain in the ass, right? It could be, right? Because when you play that DVD, you don't think about whether it's in color or black and white when you represent it to yourself. You don't think about if there's sound to it or not when you play it to yourself. But each of those things that you don't think about while you're focusing on what's at the center tell you exactly how, or tells your body how to represent that experience for you so you can relate to it. For example, everybody put your feet flat on the floor. I want you to close your eyes, uncross your hands. I want you to think of something that makes you feel really, 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 really good. Not that one. So yeah, y'all went there, didn't you? All right. I'm not the pleasure police. I'm not going to ask, but I want you to think about that thing that gives you intense pleasure, intense joy. Uncross your arms, guys. Uncross your arms. They're deep and trance. Uncross your arms. Harsh, uncross your arms. Here we go. Okay. Now, close your eyes. Bring up the picture. As you look at the picture, if it was floating somewhere in the space around you and you could reach out and touch it, take one of your hands, reach out and touch the picture, first impression. Reach out, touch the picture. That's right. Just go with your first impression. Excellent. Now, I want you to notice that there's a feeling in your body connected to that picture. Take your other hand and point to where in your body you feel that. Now you've just created a somatic bridge. Now I want you to take both of your hands, trace the outline of that picture so you know how big it is. Perfect. You guys are doing great. Now grab the edges of it like you would your iPhone and make the window really big. Don't slug each other in the face. Notice what happens to the feelings in your body as you make the picture bigger. Do they get stronger or do they get weaker? Doesn't matter what they do, just know that they do it. Now bring it back to its original size. Now with the picture staying exactly the same size, slowly pull it closer to your body and notice what happens to the intensity of the feeling. Does it get stronger or does it get weaker? And now just for fun, I want you to grab the edges of that sucker and I want you to move it around. And I want you to notice that every time you move that picture around, the feelings and the quality of the feelings change. Make it bigger, make it smaller, move it up, move it down, move it in your body, move it out. Notice how every time you move that picture around, the feelings, the intensity, and the quality of those feelings change too. And I want you to keep playing with that until you find the exact size, shape, and location that gives you the exact feeling you want to have at the exact feeling level you want to have it. And when you find that sweet spot, I want you to just fix it into place. Notice how the feelings in your body shift and changes with every breath you take and every beat of your heart. That energy flows from the picture to your body, from your body to your heart, from your heart to your bloodstream, and every place that blood flows, those feelings go into every nerve, into every cell, into every atom, into the very DNA of those cells, transforming, reprogramming, turning each and every cell of your body into a powerful, perpetual pleasure factor. Each cell of your body generating more and more and more of those amazing feelings in an infinite, ever expanding and unlimited supply. There's no need to measure it or manage it or make it happen faster. Just notice the process taking place. Allow it to install itself completely. And when you know it's done, it's locked in, test it. Try to turn it off, try to make it go away, and notice what happens instead. And when you're satisfied, stop testing, open your eyes, notice how good you feel. Hallelujah, hallelujah. All right. What did you notice? What happened when you reached out and found there was a picture there all of a sudden, wasn't there? Right? And then there was a spot where you felt feelings. The moment you use both of your hands to touch where you feel the feelings and the picture is located, you create different parts of your brain in a specific way that causes a synesthesia, a technical term, where you see what you feel what you see. But you've also connected the inside part of your nervous system to the outer part of your nervous system. And so you're creating multiple pathways into the same information. Now, Namisha was talking about how sometimes the goals that we set for ourselves or the intentions that we set, sometimes they'll work better in something round or something square. And what happens many times is, depending on the content, even though they're all, if you were to parse it down to ingredients, this is what you would find. This can take any shape. A lot of times when people have experienced betrayal, this will look like a dagger. It still has these components, but it's shaped like a dagger. A lot of people, when you start spinning and playing with the colors, color breathing and stuff, and they take that energy out, it's a circle. And I ask them to trace the outline, it's a circle. Or it's a puddle of goo or whatever, right? But the shape that the nervous system chooses also has meaning. The fact that we can't access that meaning consciously doesn't mean there isn't one. And if we understand how to talk to the nervous system properly, and we understand how to decode what it's trying to tell us, then we can do a lot of our own change work. I said a lot, not all. Because sometimes, in order for us to change, we have to go meta to something. What does that mean? To go meta means to go outside of or above or beyond, right? So for example, let's play Olympic. Let's everybody stand up for this one. So for this one, we're going to get a little bit more challenging, right? Well, actually, we'll do the easy one first. I want you to close your eyes and become aware of being in your body. Become aware of the weight on your feet. Become aware of the knees on the weight of your feet, the knees over the ankles, over the weight over the feet, the hips over the knees, and just follow the joints from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, and just become aware of everything inside. And really feel it. Really become aware of all the sensations, all the movements, all the little twitches and things. And just be really present in your body. And when you've got that, just nod your head to let me know. Perfect. Now I want you to use that amazing imagination of yours that I know that you have. Now I want you to imagine that you could take one gigantic step to the left of your physical body and step out with your energy body, or imagine yourself stepping out of yourself. And look at, and if you're standing to the left of your body, look to your right from that perspective and look at your physical body. And notice how the sensations have changed from you looking at yourself versus being inside. Now imagine that you could that's part of you that's looking at your physical body. Imagine you could step out of that, almost like an onion. So you're actually stepping out of yourself and you're looking at yourself, looking at yourself. And notice how that's different. And then just for fun, imagine you could step out of yourself one more time, but now I want you to step all the way to the back of the room and look at yourself from the back of the room, looking at yourself, looking at yourself, looking at your physical body. And notice how different that is. And when you've got that, nod your head to let me know. Perfect. Now just step in and step in and step in and step into your back, and you're fully in your body. And when you got that, open your eyes, look up here. Excellent. What was that like? Weird, huh? Right. What's funny is I won't do this, but I do this in my hypnosis classes. When people step out of their body like 2 or 3 times, as they're doing that, I'll just walk up and I'll just start twisting skin, and they don't feel it. Right. If you have any kind of fear or phobia, this is a great way for a short period of time to neutralize the phobia, because the more times you step out of your body mentally, the more you begin to put filters and barriers between the sensations in your body. Does that make sense? And this is a form of what we call dissociation. Dissociation is one of the ways that we can go meta to an experience. Because when we're locked in our body, you guys can have a seat. Give yourselves a round of applause. You did good. All right. When we're locked in our body, with very few exceptions, it's very hard to change what's going on. Right? And so one of the things that's very useful to do is the ability to step out, create a change, and then step back in, which is what we're going to do next, just for fun. Okay. Could you guys discern the distinct difference between stepping out and stepping out and stepping out versus being fully in? Perfect. Because this is something that all human beings do naturally. Most never realize it's actually a faculty, just like breathing or singing or whatever, that you can learn and get really, really good at. Most first responders do this automatically because they're so inundated with high stress responses and things like that. The problem is their training tends to only go one way. So they become very dissociated, but they can never get back in. And the problem is that the trauma stays locked in the body until it builds up to a point where they can't dissociate enough from it, and the structure kind of breaks. So I spend a lot of time cleaning up people who spend a lot of time dissociated, but don't know how to go back, right? So one of the things I'm going to share with you is a really powerful technique. It's super simple. I mean, I can't believe how simple it is. But to explain it took like 3 books. Like one of mine currently using as a doorstop because I couldn't get past the introduction, right? So, but this is called meta spinning, right? So here's what we're going to do. I want you all to pick something that bothers you. Now, all of you just went to the Godzilla level stuff in your life. I get that. That's not what we're doing, okay? Because we want to train you to do this. We want you to be, see, because if you pick something that's too strong, it will overwhelm your cognitive faculties and you won't be able to maintain the right kind of control over the process. So what we're going to do is something called bucket listing, and we're going to do it in a very, very small level. We're going to pick the things that on a scale of 0, well, technically 0 to 10 is good, right? So 10 being the worst stuff ever, and then 0 being nothing, not relevant at all. So we want something that's between a 1 and a 3, somewhere down on this level, right? So if that, like say I was driving here and somebody cut me off or took my parking space. Now, for some of you, that would be like a 12, right? That would be me, right? Because I'm a rage junkie, right? But something that has that level of, it's like a gun. Like it's an annoyance, but yeah, whatever, right? I want you to get out a piece of paper, write down 2 or 3 things, that fit within the 1 to 3 range. No Godzillas allowed, right? And the reason I'm going to keep coming back to this idea is because the way your nervous system has evolved, it will always go for Godzilla first. It will always go for Godzilla first, which is fine if you're doing therapy with somebody else who is trained and understands the process. But if you're trying to do this work on your own, which a lot of people who come to these meetups, that's what they're here for, the DIY. You can't do self-work the same way you do one-on-one work with a therapist or as a therapist, because the inherent bias of your nervous system to go for this over this will overwhelm you every time. So you have to train to fix your own stuff differently. Notice I said the word train. We're using all the same elements and building blocks that a therapist like me would use if you came to my clinic, right? The difference is you're going to be driving and being the passenger at the same time. And if you want to be able to have a high level of success, you have to make it easy first. How many people here have ever played this thing called, ever heard these things called video games? Or this thing called Dungeons and Dragons? Like, you remember the original Dungeons and Dragons came in a little box? Like the entire manual would fit in the glove compartment, right? Well, back in those games, you had this thing called experience points. You guys know what I mean when I talk about experience points? Okay, so you play video games, right? Right. What kind of video games do you like to play? What? Counter-Strike? So does that have first-person opportunities where you can go in? Yeah, he's the gamer dude back here. So you know that you have first-level characters and second-level characters and third-level characters. You ever been on these massive multiplayer platforms where you got like 27,000 people logging into the same world, right? What happens when the level 1 character wanders into the level 20 playing area? It doesn't work. It doesn't end well for the level 1 character, right? That's the exact same thing that happens, metaphorically speaking, when you take a level 1 self-improvement technique and throw it into a level 20 monster area. You go into overwhelm. Your unconscious mind, your autonomic nervous system does not sort for the better choice, at least not the way you think it does. Your unconscious mind sorts for what's familiar. So chances are, if you have something that's hanging out at a level 10, it's been around for a while, right? Which means the nerves and the neural circuits that run that are super developed. There's a lot of juice flowing through those things. But the neural circuit that has the self-help technique you're going to use, you've known maybe 10 minutes. So what do you think happens when the level 1 circuit attacks the level 20 circuit? It doesn't end well for the level 1 circuit, right? Why? Because the unconscious mind has been doing this for a long time. It's been running that DVD forever. So it's got lots of practice. And because your unconscious mind always sorts for what's familiar, regardless of how illogical it may seem, it will sort for the thing you've done the longest first and choose to do that, because your system is designed around conservation of effort. It's easier to be traumatized than it is to fix it, because you've done it so many times. You're really good at it. You're super efficient at it. I didn't make the rules. I just report them, right? It should not be this way, right? And actually, there's ways to circumvent this, but most people aren't willing to do it. So when we train and we start to work on our own stuff, we got to flip the script on that. We've got to fight a level 1, 2, or 3 problem and hit it with a level 1, 2, or 3 skill level technique until we've done what? Just like in the video games, you take out enough stuff, eventually what happens? You gain experience points, right? And then what happens? Your level 1 character becomes a level 2 character. Now you're tougher. You can take on more stuff. That's how you train for this, right? We call it bucket listing, right? Because you basically brain dump everything that you want to clear. And by the way, I don't really care if it's a physical, mental, or emotional issue, because your brain creates them the same way. I've seen tumors shrink in 90 minutes using this stuff through Zoom. It's insane what can happen. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that way for everybody, but you don't have to believe it. You just got to do it. If you connect all the ingredients, the different divisions of your nervous system, which you don't need to know about every single thing to be able to do this. And that's why I'm not going to tell you everything that's going on. I could do a 5-day seminar on just the neuroscience and the energetics that's behind what we're doing. But you don't need to do that to fix stuff, okay? So, but the first thing we have to do is we have to build up a history of success with a technique that your nervous system can relate to and access for other things. So we pick 1 to 3 things that are somewhere between an intensity level of 1, 2, or 3. And we write those out. And those are the things we're going to play with first. Does that make sense? Okay. So when everybody's got that, just raise your hands, nod your heads. Excellent. Very good. Okay. So first thing we're going to do, look at the first one on your list. And then stand up. And I may have you do something I don't normally have people do, at least with this technique, but I think it might help you guys. So you won't know the difference anyway, but it'll still work. So I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think of that thing on the first thing on your list that you want to change. And notice that there's a place in your body where the feelings and the reason behind those feelings are stored, where they grow, where they spread from. Take a moment and point to where you feel that. Go with your first impression. That's right. And notice that there's a color, maybe even a series of colors connected to those feelings. What color or colors might that be for you, first impression? Again, whatever comes up first, no matter how illogical, irrational, weird it sounds, that's the right answer. Right? If you get rainbow unicorns, that's okay. Perfect. Now, here's what I want you to do. A scale of 0 to 10, rate the intensity of that feeling. Is it the same level when you access it here as it was when it was on your sheet? If it's still within the 3 or 4 levels of work, then that's fine. Now, step out and look at yourself, touching yourself in those spots and looking at those colors. And then step out again. And keep stepping out until there's absolutely 0 feeling left from your perspective. When you got that, I want you to look at that body and think to yourself, what does that body need to change that to what you want instead? First impression. What do you have to add to that? Right? You need to dissolve something? Do you need to add something? What does it need? Whatever that is, first impression. Imagine now you could reach over with your infinite number of hands and pour that ingredient into the physical body until it's exactly the amount you need to make a change. Now remember, we're several levels out, so you don't know what it's going to be like till you step back in. When you got that and you know it's enough, sprinkle it in, pour it in, drive it in, and then begin to step back into your bodies until you're back into your physical body. And when you're fully in your physical body, open your eyes and notice what's changed. My microphone. Oh, Michael has it. Oh, Michael, you have this kooky look on your face. What just happened?
I was dealing with road rage,
Uh-huh.
and it was black,
Uh-huh.
and now it's
And now,
sort of. Is that?
how about you? She's got this, I don't, what the fuck just happened to you? She's got that, I know that face.
Things go.
Uh-huh.
Blue,
Uh-huh.
dark,
And now how's that yellow feel? Better? There's something we could add to make it even better? Okay, well, go ahead and step back out. Go ahead. Step back out. Look at the yellow. Look at all the good colors. Several layers back. And what else would you need to add to make that even better? And it doesn't have to be a color. It could be an attribute. It could be an experience. It could be a memory. Whatever you want. Everything's allowed. whatever, and you don't have to tell me what it is. But when you know what it is, just keep pouring it in. And when you know it's enough, or when you want to test if it's enough, just step back in and notice how things have changed. See the look on her face? Is that a good thing? It's not a bad thing. Just give her a big round of applause. You don't have to believe it. You just have to. How about you? What happened? Okay, we'll talk to Harsh. What happened? Uh-huh. Green, yellow, and orange.
And I tried
You guys can have a seat. Something.
I tried stepping out,
Mhm.
but after 2-3 times, I
Mhm.
was not able to step out.
Okay, so you got out 2 or 3 times, and that was your limit, and that's fine. Everybody's going to have those.
So that I was trying to food and have like my work at Taco Bell didn't serve me proper food.
Oh, Taco Bell didn't say you proper food. Okay, we should go kill him.
Yeah.
That's hate speech. I can't say that on YouTube.
I tried I think he was not happy.
He wasn't happy. So all of a sudden, your attitude about him changed, didn't it?
Yeah, I was like, I wanted to pour happiness into him.
Perfect. Did you do that?
Yeah,
And how'd that make you feel?
like I couldn't feel any color change, but I felt happy that I could help him.
Bingo. Give him a big round of applause. Have a seat. Scale of 0 to 10, rate any remaining feelings, if negative or positive, would you say?
I
You felt good. See? All you did was step out. Look at the body, say, okay, this is what's going on. This is what it needs. Pour it in. When it's enough, step in and test it. Boom. Instant change. You've had this ability your entire life. Entire life. Right? And when we do it automatically in certain instances, but nobody taught us it was something we could develop and use and refine to create change. But this is also how a lot of your shit was created in the first place. Right? Because something so dramatic happens that you literally, as a reflex, your neurology steps out of your body. And that shit's encoded. And that dissociation is encoded as part of this. So every time you access it, even though you're stuck in that limbo between being fully dissociated and feeling the feelings in your body, and you're kind of vibrating back and forth. Right? Because you're stuck. It's stuck. So we can go in and we can change all that. With metastating, we can change it super quick. But I've been keeping that one kind of close to my vest for a really long time. But it was something that I think we would do well to practice it on a regular basis as a skill set, right? The secret to this, and this is where it gets kind of weird, is the more playful you become with this, the more powerful it gets. The more serious you try to be with it, the more you tend to shut it down. Right? And this is why one of the reasons why we jump around and we do silly things. There's a very, very strong neurological reason why we do these things. Your system learns and evolves best through positive emotion, through play, and through joy. Now that seems kind of weird when you consider that the nervous system has a 4-to-1 negativity bias. What does that mean? It means that for every good thing that happens, your nervous system is going to assign a gravity of 1. 1 to 1. It's very linear. Except for every negative thing that happens from your perspective, your nervous system is going to assign a gravity of 4. That's every human being on the planet with 0 trauma. You evolved this way. By definition, evolutionarily speaking, it is actually to your advantage to have a stronger move away from negativity than it is towards a positive. Mother Nature, in her infinite wisdom, evolved this in you so you would run away from the saber-toothed tiger instead of jumping for joy over the brand new mango you found. You understand? 1 unit of good is 1, 1 unit of bad equals 1. Mango and saber-toothed tiger are tied. Right? That's not going to be a tie for much longer. Right? That's it's a self-correcting formula. But if you take evolution into account, it makes perfect sense. It's a suck deal for us as conscious beings. right? Because the nervous system, the neocortex, the new layer of your brain was the last part of the system to evolve. And it's the one that keeps us stuck. Because it has the ability to think about shit. Your mammal brain, your reptile brain, it doesn't think, it just feels and acts. Right? Unless the dog is living with a human being for a protracted period of time, dogs don't get neurotic. Because they pick up the neurosis from their owners. Right? Zebras don't get cancer. Right? They don't get neurosis. They don't get traumas or phobias. Right? Do you ever see, like, anybody ever watch National Geographic? Right? You ever see those really horrendous death shots or snuff films where they show the zebra getting attacked by the lion or the, right? And every now and then they show one where the zebra gets away or the gazelle gets away. And if once in a while, and you should probably Google this just to show David's not full of shit. Every now and then they'll show like the cheetah or whatever getting chased off before they could finish off the zebra or the gazelle or whatever. And after about a minute or two, the zebra looks dead or the gazelle looks dead. And then all of a sudden they start to shake and they start to twitch, right? And they start to fall, and they'll tend to pulse or vibrate strongest where the damage was done. Okay, those are called neurogenic tremors. From a scientific perspective, that is nature's ultimate trauma release mechanism. And after about 5 or 6 minutes, whatever, however long it takes to finish shaking, that zebra, that gazelle gets up and they're good to go. There is no memory of that trauma anywhere because they vibrated it out. You have that capacity too. Somewhere between the ages of birth, my teacher told me between 3 and 5, we lose it. We don't lose it. We turn it off. Something about our socialization causes us to repress and lock things in instead of shaking it out. But how many of you have ever been in trance? Okay. How many people know that they've been in trance? Because you've all been in trance. You just may not have known it. Right. And all of a sudden you just twitch for no freaking reason. Those are remnants of that mechanism. That you all have that. And if you could do 15 to 20 minutes of that tremoring every night, your shit would be gone and you'd be sleeping like a baby. But unfortunately, not many people know how to reactivate it except spontaneously. Unfortunately, for most of the people in the energy world, they start doing Reiki or pranic healing and they start seeing these tremors and twitching, and all of a sudden they think they got a demon-possessed patient and they want to exorcise them with a stake through the heart, right? But that's actually really, really, it's something we all actually want to have more of. But we're so afraid of looking stupid or something being wrong because because we create narratives in our head, right? That have nothing to do with the truth. So I want to give you guys something. So that metastating, you can do that anywhere and you can play with that. I would play with that on the toilet. Especially when the smell gets too much and the fan's not cutting it, just step out and then step out. So you're halfway down the hall. There's 27 years going, what the hell did you eat? Right? Just go meta, young person, right? I make jokes, but the more you can play with stepping in and stepping out, the easier it gets. The more neuroplastic your brain becomes, and the faster you can start to make your own changes. Can change really be that fast? Yes. Well, if it's so, why weren't we doing this thousands and thousands? We were. We lost it, or it was kept secret. Right? It took us however long human beings have been on this planet to figure out how to get rid of that shit in 5 seconds. Right? But you have abilities.
So, start talking about magic, and the next thing you know, you gotta watch that. Anytime I start talking about energetics.
So for those of you who can't hear David online, when David starts talking about energetics, sometimes he fries the electronics. So we're currently working on technical difficulties, and that's what's going on.
Did any of our YouTubers?
So David is curious, for those of you on YouTube, and I am looking on the YouTube chat, he wants to know who was just playing with the metastating we were just teaching. Also, I see people saying the volume is low, but when I'm listening to the volume on my other device for YouTube, the volume is really nice. So I'm not quite sure if you may need to adjust your volume.
All right, so this is the first thing, again, this is about how to reprogram your subconscious mind, so we need to cover foundations. But I wanted to give you guys an experience first, especially for you new people. How many, there was, I know, was it Kathy? Jessica. What's your name, sir?
Dean.
Dean, you've been here before, right?
No.
No?
Huge fan.
Oh, thank you, welcome. What did you want to learn from tonight? Everything. He's got that look in his eyes. Everything. All right. Talk about dialoguing with the subconscious mind. Okay. So these are 6 things that you need to remember anytime you want to ask your nervous system a question. Okay. Remember that your brain, you have 3 layers to your brain. You have the brain stem. You have what is commonly referred to as the limbic system. My friend Chase likes to call this the dog brain or the mammal brain. So if you want to know what this part looks like, it looks like that. Right down to the little skull and crossbones blanket. Okay? This is your emotional brain. All right? Directly below that is your is the brain stem or the paleocortex. This is your primal drives brain. These 2 communicate a lot. Okay? You can, this is kind of how I look at it. Well, let's talk about this. We talk about feelings. Everything human beings do is in response to a feeling. It's either a feeling they want more of or a feeling they want less of. Everyone's is dancing between towards pleasure and away from pain. We need to understand that on a neurological level because you get a +1 for a positive, +4 for a negative. So even though some people in the NLP world would say, well, I'm a towards person, horse shit. You're all away from. You're all away from, because if I put the saber-toothed tiger over there, and I put the mango over there, and you have to choose, guess where you're going? It ain't the mango. Okay? Now, that's an extreme example, but what does happen is people oscillate. Everybody is a towards and everybody is an away from. When push comes to shove, you're all away from. But if you had a preference, if you could choose, you would either be a towards and away from, or an away from and a towards. We call that a propulsion system. So you're either moving away from something towards something else, or you're moving towards something and away from something else, but you're always doing both. You just have a preference. That's a conscious preference. When we distill things down to the visceral unconscious level, that takes over. Right? As long as there's no saber-toothed tiger in the mix, you have some choice. But you will respond to that negativity input. Now, that being said, there are some things that really, that sounds like a suck deal. On one level it is, right? Because that means for everything, every negative thing we encounter, it's 4 times stronger than any positive thing we encounter. But here's the thing. It's smoke and mirrors. How many people know what a funhouse is? You know, we go to the funhouse and we have those mirrors that make you look like this wide and this tall. That's what your nervous system does to fear. Anything that you're actually afraid of is only 25% as bad as your nervous system's making it out to be. Because one negative and one positive are the same, except through the lens of your nervous system. And if you can internalize that, anytime you're presented with something that scares the bejeebies out of you, and you start running all of these movies in your head, remember, your nervous system is making it 75% worse than it actually is. Sometimes it's even more. But just understand, just stepping back and wait a minute, this is only about a quarter as bad as I'm making it out to be. Does that make it tall? Now you can work with that, right? But just the act of evaluating how your nervous system has done that takes you meta. the ability to measure something takes you one layer out. When we started the drill, I said, I'd be inside your body, feel everything, experience everything. And then I said something very sneaky, which none of you probably caught. I said, think about your body. The moment I said, think about your body, you had to go outside of it and evaluate it. So the moment I start thinking about my internal representations, I've already started the process of dissociation. The same thing happens when you take all the things that bother you and you brain dump them onto a piece of paper. And then you look at them on a piece of paper and you assign a number value to them. Just the act of blurting it onto a piece of paper causes your body to vent the emotional charge while you're writing it. But then you have to look at what you wrote and think about it and evaluate it and then assign a number to it, which means you have to compare that to that and figure out which one has more. Layer upon layer upon layer. You're already causing your body to process the information just by listing it, evaluating, and organizing it. Which is why when you start with the ones and you start working up the list, shit gets easy. I mean, that's the whole theory behind it. If you come to like identity by design or something like that, you'll get the whole thing. But that's how you have to train to work on your own stuff, right? If you got someone like Moss or me or Jake or Richard or Namisha, who's very, very well trained, sees people all the time, you can start with the 10s, 12s, the 13s on the 10 scale, right? Because we can handle that. We can guide you through that. But when you're working on your own, you need to flip the script. And you need to stay at that level until you can effectively do that. Because if you try to go, everybody can hit a home run. Anybody, you know, in role-playing games, says anybody can roll a natural 20, right? First level character can roll a natural 20 and put a hurting on the big bad guy once. We don't want once. We want consistent results. This is how you get consistent results. You do it through training, right? Now, those of you who see clients, the goal behind seeing clients is so that they never need to see you again. I know for some of you that scares the living daylights out of you because that's your money, right? But your job as a healer is to get your client to the point where they don't need you anymore. And part of that process, once they've killed the Godzillas, so to speak, is to teach them how to fix their own shit. So you should get really good at this process because at some point, if you're seeing clients, you're going to have to teach it to them, right? Unless you want recurring income, in which case, right? I'm not the ethics teacher, right? Okay, so back to this. Your emotional brain and your primal, your reptile brain, for lack of a better word. The reptile brain works in primal drives, sensations, feelings. Your mammalian brain works in emotion. Now, all emotions are feelings, but not all feelings are emotions. Feelings can trigger emotions, but that's not the same thing. Okay? So anytime we're dealing with sensation and primal drives, we're dealing with the reptile brain. Anytime we're dealing with emotions, sometimes images, we're dealing with the mammalian brain, the dog brain. Anytime we're dealing with words, we're dealing with the new layer. We call that the neocortex. This is the part that thinks in words, language. So notice that 2/3 of your brain don't speak English. They don't speak Hindi. They don't speak Farsi. They don't speak any language we recognize except one. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. Everything that your brain does when it communicates with itself is in the language of sensation and the attributes of those sensations. Okay, so when we start getting the body engaged in the change work, you guys do this all the time, you don't realize it. Right? I'll point it out in a minute. The moment we get the hands working, we've automatically activated the left and right hemispheres of the brain. The minute we point to where we feel it out in space, we've activated our proprioceptive nervous system and our interoceptive nervous system. I'm lighting my neurology up like a Christmas tree. But I'm doing it all here. Understand? That's why the change happens so fast. The more words you get involved, the longer the change takes. Because this part only understands words. Okay? You ever meet somebody who's hyper cerebral, hypercognitive? They show no emotion whatsoever. They talk in a monotone. They're all here. They've created a firewall between their feeling brains and their primal drives. And so when you say point to where you feel, they go, what? They're dead from the neck down. Okay? If you want, and one of the reasons that happens, this is where maximum dissociation happens. When you're in your neocortex, your thinking brain, that's where dissociation happens. It's a defense mechanism because these people don't want to feel, because they don't understand what you're learning tonight. Sensation, pictures, images, sounds, not words, sounds, words. The problem you have in the different parts of your brain is not that you're broken. It's mistranslation. You see, this part of your brain is the closest to the surface, so it screams the loudest. Right? You hear things in words and tones, and that creates pictures and a cascade of feelings and all these other good things. But this part of you is also, we have another name for this, by the way. The rational, lying brain. You see, one of the jobs of the neocortex is to help you survive in communities, is to help you solve problems, is to help you navigate groups without getting killed or thrown out. So its job is to create stories, narratives, reasons why you're doing the things you do that may have absolutely nothing to do with the real reason you're doing them. You guys ever heard the term spin? What do I mean when I say spin? So it's not, meet the original spin doctor. It's your neocortex. Its job is to create a story for everything, even if that story has nothing to do with reality. So when it gets information from the brainstem and the mammalian brain, oh, this feeling is happening, this is happening, this is the story. Until it isn't. Right? But your brain treats that like it's true because it created it. So here's one of the first rules you need to understand. What your brain creates, your brain accepts. Human beings never resist themselves. Every single thing that you're experiencing in your body right now, even if it started with you getting sideswiped by a truck, you created it. That truck may have hit you once, but every time you relive memory, you're doing it to yourself. You are not the way you are because of the things that happened to you. You're the way you are because of the way you recorded the things that have happened to you and the way you're relating to those recordings. It's really that simple. Yeah, in a non-neuroscience-y kind of way. But you started playing with that. When you guys pointed to where you felt it and reached out and touched the picture, did I at any time ask you what was in the picture? I didn't need to. Why? Because that wasn't what mattered. What matters was how you built it. Size, shape, location, inside, outside. These are all qualities that fit into one of these categories. Right? We never looked at the story. We didn't need to. The story isn't important. It is, but not at this level. What's important is how did you build that thought? How did you build that memory? and why? And can you change it? The answer is a resounding yes. In fact, God demands you change it. Because that's why God gave us the ability to do this. You just didn't realize you could do it. And you didn't realize you had permission to do it. I've walked into the hearts and minds of tens of thousands of people over the last 20, 30 years. So many of them are in this constant state of suffering because they didn't realize they were allowed to not be. Not all of them, but some. So before we go any further, realize this. The very fact that you're in this room means God has given you permission to change anything you want. You're allowed. Right? Not David. I'm just a guy in a vest. Right? Not a very good one today either. So people have been mocking on my vest since I got here. Right? At least it's not mocking on my pot belly. Anyway. All right. So you have the neocortex, the rational lying brain. Now, why am I talking about these brain regions? Because what we're going to do next, the problem isn't that your brain, your neocortex lies. That's not the problem. It's not the problem that your mammalian brain thinks in emotions. It's not the problem that your limbic system or your brainstem thinks in primal drives. The problem is that one layer of the brain doesn't understand the other layer of the brain because they're speaking different languages. And if all you do is if you can just translate from one layer of the nervous system to the next, you can facilitate communication within your own mind and body and change anything you want. The problem is projection. This part of your brain is filtering everything that comes up. It thinks it's in charge. It isn't. This part of your brain, which makes up all the stories that govern your life, is the 2-year-old of the system, metaphorically speaking. It is the least informed and the last to know anything. But it interprets the information that comes up from this deep level through its own lens. And that's the problem. Because what it's interpreting isn't what's being sent. So it creates its own narrative. Right? How many people here, just for fun, have ever been waiting for a phone call or a text that didn't show up? Were you suddenly thinking positive thoughts about this person? Were you wondering if they were dead in a ditch somewhere? Where the fuck did that come from? Because they could have been invited to a Christmas party and be having the time of their lives, but you didn't go there, most of you. Right? You went to the worst case scenario. Who did that? Your neocortex. It took a piece of data. Text was supposed to be here at 7:15. At 7:25, they haven't texted. Motherfucker. Right? And made a story. That story triggered more stories. And then more stories until finally you're down here, but you're seeing a picture up here, but there's 27 movies running down here, all filed under motherfucker. True, not true. Right? For anybody who's ever done therapy work, we have this thing called the presenting problem. Someone comes in, you have them sit down, say, so what seems to be the problem? I went through a divorce. I'm 35. I got divorced at 33, and I just can't get past it. I just can't get over it. I need you to help me get past this. Okay. So where did the problem happen? I was 33. I got a divorce. Okay. I'm going to talk. I'm going to pretend to believe them. And then I'm going to put them in a trance. And I'm going to go talk to the boss. I'm going to send this part out for pizza because it likes pizza. And I'm going to talk to these guys down here. And I say, take me to the first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause of XYZ problem. He's 5 years old, sitting in his living room, watches his parents argue. First thing you do when you tell him that, he goes, that can't be right. Why? Because it conflicts with the expectation. We call that the presenting problem. The problems that you think are the problem aren't the problem. They're the symptom. There's a reason those feelings and those images are there. There's another feeling connected to that reason. And that's where they live. But each of these feelings is written like this. It's a DVD you take out and play. You have control of the editing deck, though. These are all rewritable. If you can't rewrite it, you can just shred it. System doesn't care. It doesn't care what's on the DVD. The only part that cares, no part cares. I'll explain that in a minute. But are you guys with me so far? Is it making sense? All right. It doesn't mean bad shit doesn't take us by surprise and happen. But with very few, well, with literally no exceptions, those things tend to only happen once. Now you can have similar events, but they're still discrete events. Does that make sense? So every memory, every feeling that you've been carrying around for any length of time, those things only happen to you once. So why are they still happening? It's because you keep taking the DVD out and playing with it, right? You don't realize it because the part of you that does that isn't necessarily this part. Okay? But it does become aware of it, and then it creates movies. So how do we get good information? How do we, when something comes up, how do we trust what part of the nervous system, what part of the brain that information is coming from that leads us to the truth that we can use? Well, I'm glad you asked. Okay. You guys with me so far? Okay, this leads us to something that everybody in Planet David needs to overlearn. It's called dialoguing with your subconscious mind. And if you want to reprogram your subconscious mind, you got to know how to talk to it. Even more importantly, you've got to know when it's talking to you. Because this speaks really, really loud. This one whispers. Does that make sense? It doesn't have to make sense. It's how we work. Hey there. Okay. So here are the 6 rules for dialoguing with the unconscious. We call this the 6 dynamics of an unconscious response. Tattoo this in your underwear, inside your bra, any place. Tattoo it backwards on your eyelids so when you go to sleep at night, you see it. Because if you want to do change work, or whether it's on yourself or with clients, you need to understand this. And you need to teach your clients this at the very beginning of your client sessions. The unconscious mind always answers first, usually non-verbally. So when we were going through the metastating, we were talking about point to where you feel it. What color is it? What did I say? First impression. The information that comes up first is always the right information. It's always there, even if it makes absolutely no linear, logical, chronological, emotional sense. Whatever comes up first is the right answer. Okay? Unconscious mind always answers honestly. Let me be very clear on this. Honestly is not truthfully or factually. Your unconscious mind does not work on facts. It works on perceptions. So when it tells you what the problem is, or when it gives you the answer that you're asking for, it's giving you its truth, which is all that nervous system cares about. There is no objective truth in the unconscious. There's only your truth. And truth comes in levels. There's the neocortex truth, the story about the experience. There's the mammalian truth, the body feelings and the emotions connected to the original event. And then there's the primal drives, fear, anger, rage, reproduction, starvation, hunger. Hunger, great one. How many people have ever been hangry? All right, which came first, the hunger or the anger? Hunger. Primal drive, emotion, and then all of a sudden everything people said pissed you off. Right? That's how it works. Everything that pissed you off was created from a story your neocortex put together based on the emotions you were having, based on the drive you were experiencing that needed to be satisfied. The drive that gets frustrated or deprived grows stronger. And it will systematically marshal the body's resources until your neocortex generates a story that allows you to justify acting on the drive or the emotion. That's how seduction works. Generate a strong enough body feeling. Oh, I'm just going back to his apartment to look at his stamp collection. What could happen? That's called trance logic. Plausible deniability. Right? We've all woken up next to someone that we were there because we had one too many. Oh, that damn booze. Really? You've had this happen 27 times. You think by now you know what happens when you drink booze. It's not the booze. It's the plausible deniability. Right? This is how we work. You can change anybody's decision. You can change anybody's perception if you just change the body feeling. Right? But the nervous system gives us the illusion that it works the other way. It doesn't. It comes up, we create a story, and now we're looping. Right? That's why when you start thinking about the one time that, like again, you feel good about this guy, now you send him good feelings, so this will have no effect on you whatsoever. When that guy screwed up your food, you were thinking about all the other times your food got screwed up. Why? Exactly. Your brain started opening filing cabinets. Have I ever experienced this before? Well, yes, this time at Chili's, and this time at In-N-Out, and this time wherever it was. And the more files you open, the stronger those feelings got. Because each and every one of those files has a set of body feelings locked inside. So it's never the surface thing that's the problem. It's always deeper. And this is why we need to understand when the unconscious mind gives you an answer, the truthfulness of it is in the sequence that the information comes out, not the information itself. Whatever comes up first is what your unconscious mind, your nervous system believes to be the truth. Everything it's doing is based on its truth. And it will always come out first. Now, if it were only that simple, but it's not, because there's 4 more things we got to factor into this. You with me so far, Harsh? Okay. Your unconscious mind always answers first. It always answers honestly. It always feels like you're making it up. When you were stepping out of yourself and you were pouring shit in, it's like, I'm making this shit up. Right? And then you step back in and all of a sudden shit changed. Yes. Because the part of you that controls your nervous system, the part of you that controls your blood pressure, your hormones, your heartbeat, your respiration, your kidney function is also the part that makes things up. And that's why it has a similar feeling. Not because it's not real. As far as your nervous system's concerned, every daydream and fantasy you ever had is just as real as this. Your nervous system doesn't make that distinction until much later in the game. Somewhere between here and here. And I'm not 100% convinced of that either. Okay? But it will always, especially when you're getting the right information, it will always feel like you're making it up. So the moment you catch yourself going, that can't be right, or that's not it, or that's not what I meant. Yeah, it is. Big red flag should go up. Stay with that. Trust me, I've been doing this 30 years. I still get hung up on that. I go with the purge in Oregon or release something in my life because I can do that now for 30, 40 years of looking under the other people's hoods. And I start to pull it apart and dissolve into it. And all of a sudden the memory comes up. I'm like, what? Really? And then my shit goes away. I'm like, huh, guess so. Right? I'm not immune to I work the same way you guys do. Right? And the only reason I'm a few pages ahead in the manual is because I wrote the fucking manual. Right? But okay, always answers first, always answers honestly, always feels made up. Any questions about those 3? Why is this important? Because when you start working with each other, this is how you check. This is how you test. Okay? And for those, I know Grant sees clients, Moss sees clients, Richard, you see clients from time to time, right? Anybody else here see clients? Okay. So if you want to dissolve 90% of all resistance you ever get, teach your client these things before you put them in trance. Because it will completely neutralize all the shit that can undermine your session. Okay? I completely took away my 90-minute pre-talk and do a 5-minute spiel on the 6 dynamics of an unconscious response, and my hit rate goes super high. Now, you're always going to have an urge to edit what just came up. So it's not enough that I say go back to the first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause of XYZ problem. And all of a sudden, you think the problem happened when you were 33. All of a sudden, you're 5 years old watching your parents argue, right? Or have some kind of knockdown, drag out fight that you thought didn't affect you. Had nothing to do with you, had everything to do with you. Why? Because you're recording it. The next thing you do is you want to edit it. And that's where that can't be right. This is what must have happened, right? The moment you start trying to generate alternate reasons to justify or make the experience you've just unlocked more palatable, you've just taken a wrong turn to Editsville. That's your conscious mind trying to control the narrative. If your conscious mind could fix this by controlling the narrative, it had done that already. Okay, your conscious mind and neocortex can't access directly the level of your system that you need in order to write the new program or to change the code. And the only way to do it is through imagination, body movement, and breathing. Right? We'll get to that. Is this cool so far? I know for a lot of you this is review, but these are things that again, never go out of style, and they cook the rice. It's never loud and it's never linear. Almost never linear. So, you've heard me say that this part of your brain, that neocortex, it's really loud, it's really blatant, it's really obvious. But the parts of you where the stuff is stored, that you have to access, that's deep, right? Let's have an experience of that. One of the things I always tell people is you have two sets of beliefs. Beliefs you know about and beliefs you don't. Okay, so you guys all know what affirmations are, right? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Now, this is even though this is going to sound like an affirmation, this is actually an uncovering process. So it's going to cause you to become aware of things that you don't normally pay attention to, or by default, you try to ignore. So I want you to stop for a moment and think about something that you really want, but you don't have yet. Okay? And so the classic affirmation is every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better, all right? So we'll take some, again, I'm going to ask you to say your affirmations out loud, but you're all going to be, when you can close your eyes so you can all just focus on the changes in your body, because I need you to become more and more self-aware, because until you become more and more self-aware, you can't access your power, right? And most of us are terrified to go in there because we don't know what's in there. Here's the good news. Anything that's in there is shit you've already beaten. Because if you hadn't beaten it, you'd be dead now. The only time we encode trauma or anything that we consider to be traumatic is because your nervous system perceives a threat that it thinks it's going to die from. And in that moment before where you would either die or survive, your brain shuts off for a fraction of a second. It does a flash save on all the feelings and emotions, locks them in a little file until it's time to go in. And every time you get into a situation that's similar to or related in any way to that little file, it replays the file. But it's just the file. It's not the event. The fact is you survived it because otherwise there would be no file to play. So when you go inside, understand it's a funhouse mirror. Everything that you don't want to look at, everything you're afraid of or makes you feel bad about yourself, it's just a recording. It's just something you recorded that you've already beaten. But you've been denying it. You've been running from it, which is why it's still there. Right? So everything inside of you, you're already stronger than. And I need you to really, really internalize that. Okay? So I want you to think of something now that you don't have yet, but it's possible for you to have, but you don't have it yet for whatever reason. I want you to make an affirmation in your mind. I now have X. Make that affirmation but before you start saying the affirmation in your mind, I want you to scan your body, become very aware of the different sensations in your body. Notice where your baseline is, your baseline stress level, your baseline level of relaxation. Notice where all that is. Okay? And now I want you to start saying that affirmation over and over again in your mind. and notice how the feelings in your body shift and change. All right, and I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds or so just to have fun with this and just to pump that affirmation up. Right? Let the energy build in whatever way that your system wants to do that. Give you now another 25 seconds. Like a boss. 10 more seconds. The longest 10 seconds of my life. Good. Open your eyes. Look up here. All right. So let's we didn't go over microphone etiquette. So remember that when you talk into the microphone, you talk in this end, sound comes out that end. Right? This is not going to help you. Keep it here. Talk into the microphone. Michael, the feelings in your body before you began the affirmation were, how would you describe those?
My heart was beating faster.
Mm-hmm.
My heart was beating faster.
Okay. And then as you started the affirmation, what happened?
It slowed down and my energy level lowered
Okay.
in a good way.
In a good way. Okay. What else did you notice?
I was calmer.
Calmer. Okay. As you were doing the affirmation, did you notice any feelings of ick anywhere in your body?
No.
Okay. Pass it to Jesse. What did you notice?
Crazy, very much like him.
Okay.
My heartbeat totally slowed down, but became stronger. No way.
Okay, good. You
Good.
guys are cleaner than I thought. All right. Anybody here, I'll just cut to the chase. Did anybody here have this really obvious good feeling start to build, and in the background there was like this little icky, naggy, niggly feeling? Right? Congratulations. You just found the belief you didn't know you had. You see, when we do affirmations, we're trying to turn up the volume on our neocortex loud enough that it overwrites this. But if you're on the right track and you're activating the right circuits, if you don't have something, there's a reason. And there's usually some internal beliefs or memories or feelings connected to that reason. So when you start to provoke the circuit where the problem is, the affirmation will start to build up a surface level good feeling, but it will also start to trigger anything that might get in the way. And when it does that, it often manifests as that kind of quiet in the background, icky, naggy feeling that you want to consciously ignore. You know what I'm talking about. You've all had that experience, right? Especially where money's concerned. Right? I now make 7 figures a year. Right? You're seeing yourself with the money, and there's this party going, fuck you. Right? It's just this little quiet, icky voice that I'm not focusing on you, right? Guess what? That's the part that's keeping you stuck. So what do? You turn up the affirmation louder, hoping to drown it out. Doesn't work. Takes a huge amount of repetition that way to get from the neocortex into the deep unconscious. Faster, more efficient way to do it is to become aware of those subtle sensations and go after those. Now, the reason they're subtle isn't because they're weak. The reason they're subtle is because they're deep. They're deep in the unconscious. They're deep in the autonomic nervous system. They're deep in the tissues and the fascia. So when it finally reaches the surface, it has further to travel than the neocortex. But it's stronger. And it's not linear. Almost never linear. Person comes in, they were divorced at 33, they're 35 years old, they still can't get past it. They think it's because of the divorce. They go back, they find out 5 years old watching their parents argue. Where's that feeling? It's in my intestine. Right? Why? Because they were angry, they felt rejected. And it goes to the intestine. Okay? But there's a whole lot of time between 5 and 33 and 35. What happened to everything else? It went from 35 to 5 because your unconscious mind doesn't organize things by linear time. It organizes them by what they have in common. Where do they overlap? And that's why when we go back to the first scene, situation, or event, that is the source, it's almost always 0 to 5. And it doesn't matter where you started. That's where you're ending up. Every now and then, once in a blue moon, you'll end up between 7 and 13. Maybe once a leap year, you'll wind up in your teens. But the vast majority of your stuff, that's where it all started. And if you fix it there, everything else starts to dissolve. These are the 6 things that when we start talking to our own nervous systems or the nervous systems of people who are going to help us, we need to pay attention to this, because this will tell us what's true. This will tell us where we need to go and what we need to do. Because any story, your neocortex spin is going to take you in a very, very different direction. We need to be zealously with this, because this will take us all over the place. Maria.
So when it goes to 0 to 5, when everything starts there and then every blue moon is higher, is it still kind of the same if, like, for example, someone has a brain injury, so their memories start from 5 and above? We just do the same process?
I would. That's why I would start there, because there's always multiple ways to the same memory, especially if you subscribe to the idea that we're just basically made out of light. Holographic memory theory says that we're all just light, right? So there's multiple on-ramps to that information, right? I truly believe that there isn't anything that I think there's very few things that are truly lost. We just haven't found a way to access them yet, right? When I work with Parkinson's patients, tremoring all over the place, the deeper into trance they go, the more the tremors go away. Who knew? I did, right? Because I do the work, but most people don't get that kind of opportunity. So, but this is what's going on. Yes, sir. Pass the microphone to Harsh.
I wanted to ask that when I am like going down and seeing what is the real reason, so how do I deal with it and how do
Well,
I?
that's what we're doing next, right? The thing of the first thing that has to the techniques are really simple. The problem is, do I trust the information I've got? And without this, you don't know that you can trust it, because your neocortex is always going to make a story that makes absolutely nothing to do with the real reason. Now, the beautiful part is with the techniques we're going to play with tonight, you don't need to know the story. You just need to know where you feel it. Because we're not going to deal with it through unpacking or revisiting the memory necessarily. Like the things we're going to work with, transformational triad, and we're going to do color breathing, we're going to do magic frame, we're going to do spinning. These things I don't need to know much about what's going on with you. As long as you can trust the information and you're willing to work with that information and play pretend with that information, the technique will work. The only question is how many times you're going to have to repeat it. Most people are one and done, but every now and then you got to do it 2 or 3 times. But that's okay. That's how your nervous system changes. It's through repetition, right? Remember this. Anything that your nervous system created, your nervous system can change. The nervous system, the human nervous system, your nervous system never resists itself. So when you generate a color that represents a problem and you ask your nervous system to give you a feeling, a frequency, a vibration, or a color, that would completely dissolve the other color that represents the problem and give you what you want instead. And a color pops up and you breathe it through the affected area, and all of a sudden your stuff just goes away. That's how it works, because you created it in the first place. So you're allowed to change it. Okay? We create things all the time based on the information we have and the body feelings. And that's all. Every belief that you hold sacred, you learned. You learned it based on the feelings in your body at the time and the information that you had. Now, sometimes that information came from a trusted source who you didn't think to question. Sometimes it came from a situation where you just had to figure shit out and you just figured this is how the world is. It doesn't matter how you got it, you built it the same way, from the same stuff, and your system can change it all. Okay. So, you guys ready to play? Or would you need a brain break? Okay. So, again, we're gonna go till about 10-ish, and give or take. So before we go, to our break, a couple of things. A, we have lots of chocolate, lots of gluten-free cornbread, which is an NLP Power First. Oh, if you have not signed a video release, please be sure to sign that before you go. Otherwise, we can't let you leave. For everybody who came out tonight, and I want to thank you for coming out on short notice because we literally just posted this meetup like 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Okay. Normally to get in to see me is $3,000 to walk in the door. Okay. So I have associates that work for me now who I trust implicitly. And so for everybody who came out tonight, I would like to offer you guys a free gift. For everybody who wants to, I'd like to offer you 30 minutes of Moss's time to see if we offer all of our prospective clients a free 30-minute consultation to determine if your case is a fit for our methods. After you pass our screening, we'll discuss strategies and tactics for helping you get your situation resolved in the shortest amount of time possible. If we can help you, we'll tell you. If we can't help you, we'll tell you that too. And we'll point you in the direction that we think has the highest chance of getting you the help that you need. Moss is my protege, if I can use that word. He's more like my indentured servant, but Moss has probably had more supervised training with me than anybody on the planet. And he's really, really good with clients. And so for those of you who are interested in working with Planet David in any respect, because to get to me, you got to go through Moss. All right, Moss will walk you through the options, make sure that this is something that's the right fit for you. Because I don't want, again, my job isn't to take your money. My job is to help you. Right. And it does me no good to take your money and then not get you the change you came for. So I'm not going to jeopardize, I'm being purely selfish here. I'm not going to jeopardize my sterling reputation by taking a client that I don't think is a good fit. But that's the vast minority of people. So here's the deal. You're going to get 30 minutes of our time to do with whatever you want. If you want to go through the evaluation and consultation process, great. You want to pick our brain for 30 minutes straight and talk about your dogs, your puppies, your new house. That 30 minutes is our gift to you. Does that make sense? We only have a few slots left for that though, because we have a massive training schedule. Moss and I are both going through a doctorate program in Chinese energetic medicine, and the schedule's a bear, right? And my clients are really pissed off about it, but it is what it is. Hopefully we'll be done with that in August, and then we'll be starting higher level energetics and spirituality and mystical trainings that are built on this stuff, right? We walked into the DCM program and people actually recognized us and were amazed at what things we could do with their stuff faster. I don't want to brag, but like 6 of my people go in and all of them walked into a master level class and kept up or better. Right. So I had a proud papa moment. But anyway, my point is that we're good at what we do and we got more cool stuff coming if that's something you're into. That's not important right now. What's important right now is you have things you want handled and you need help, and we want to give you that opportunity. So during the break, please see Moss, grab some chocolate, you'll go to the restroom, grab a Celsius, because we're going to get down on the transformational triad tonight, which now is the transformational quadrant or whatever, because I added a 4th technique. Oh, you missed that one. You came late. I can't help that. You'll have to get it from Grant or. All right. So that's what we got going on. See Moss. And I'll answer some questions during the break, and hopefully I'll get a time to go to the restroom too. All right, go play.
2 minutes?
Yep. Might be a good idea if you think about bucket listing, might be a good idea to jot some things down that you want to work on.
Oh, cool. You know each other. Please fill that out so we can keep track. Like a brag about you here, so you know.
It doesn't sound any better.
Hey, I'm doing Austin.
See you.
Good to see you too. Did you get home? Did you make it home?
It's fun. What? 30.
Originally, actually, when they were in your house,
Yeah. I had no idea this was really a song. Yeah, I saw Reno. I didn't even see his name on there. It was like,
Oh,
yeah, I was just like, oh, it seems like right in my outfit. It was like, yeah, no, no, it's East County. It's like 3 miles. Yeah. I'd love to sign up for a 30-minute session here. I'm like, pick your brain on a few things. You do this.
I want my son. I get them. Yeah.
From here, I wasted myself. Is this yourself?
Yeah, itu
Oh, is it? Harsh. So I was in service. Figure out. I have a song in that. What am I doing? I am less ability. Send you my.
I did.
That's fast and all that stuff.
Okay, do I?
And yeah, then give you one. Oh, I thought I'd give you one when we were sitting over on the chair.
Oh. Oh, the spinning.
Haven't learned that. That's great. Oh. You should know. Get it yourself, or you just found it, right? No, no. A few minutes. My A1 soon. Let's see. Right?
Oh, we'll go back. Yes. So.
Oh. We're just getting started.
Yes. Only 12?
Well, they looked at 20.
Only 12.
Yeah. Their sister's like super jazz.
Wow.
And it was just in the past 2 months, she just went downhill really quick.
5 minutes.
So I got her. These sessions might not be, but she read it and then we talked about and for quite a very good thing. So Monday, it was on Monday, confidence study of the driver.
That was a great story.
Prepared.
We're gonna fix the green.
I will go.
How's the dog doing?
Yeah.
She won't eat.
How many more?
Be a little flat.
She used to be our fat girl, and then end of March, beginning of April, she started growing up. Yeah, that's right. I took her to the vet, and it was like, oh, you lost a pound. I've seen her kind of get skinny, but pound.
A pound at that size is huge.
So now she's down probably almost 2 pounds.
You got to eat sweetheart.
Can't thermoregulate.
Yeah, so that's why she's with us and we can blankets and she's in a jacket. Always constantly. Right, she's warm enough. She won't eat unless she's warm enough. And then we know she's got an appetite, so she's hungry. She looks at her food and she's like,
We try to give her different kind of food, like more like 5 it's like this.
what's this?
Last one you.
Last Wendy. Real quick. She's working.
Please, please, please. Please, please.
Thank you. What are these? What are they? They're nutty.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Oh. All right. Go in a row. July tomorrow.
I like spicy. Can you explain gluten-free to his mom? Yeah. Because Moss is trying to explain why he can't eat certain baked goods. Can't have wheat? Wheat or just gluten?
It's not.
Hook him up. He's all about it now. He's gonna follow you home now.
Said the magic words.
You got food he can eat. He's following you everywhere. All right. All right. So we're going to take a slightly different track tonight. We're still going to cover the transformational triad, but that'll be coming up. So what we're going to do now, Harsh, is this your mom or your grandma? Mom. Okay. So how much English does she understand? If I guided you guys, walked you guys through a meditation, would she be able to follow me? Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, I was going to ask Namisha to translate. That will cost me. Nothing's free. I give and I give and I give. All right. So what we're going to talk about first, and this is something that, again, I teach all my therapy students. And the reason that I do it is because every time you work with a client, you never know what's coming up. And one of the things that gets in the way of resolving issues is not feeling safe. In fact, if we could distill down everything human beings do that causes them problems, it's a quest for safety. It's just what it is. Okay. And so one of the things we talk about in training is something called resourcing. In NLP, we have dissociation training. Now, they don't train you like I just trained you. Okay. In fact, when those of you who came to NLP Ultra, we went way off the deep end in terms of dissociation training and things of that nature and how to induce it in other people and stuff like that. But dissociation is a way to create safety because it creates barriers between the problem and our ability to deal with it, right? It's like when you're too close to a fire, right? And you step away and now it's more comfortable. If it's still too hot, you can step away again. It's the same idea with dissociation. Dissociation doesn't put out the fire. It just lessens its impact on you, right? If your house is on fire and you step away from the burning house, okay, you're stepped away from the burning house, but your house is still fucking burning. You understand? So what happens a lot of times, especially in classical NLP, dissociation is used as a resource, but they don't understand that you can't just dissociate something and leave it there. Right? You have to dissociate, fix the problem, and put them back in their body. Dissociation is not resolution unless you do other things with it. Okay. But some people will say, well, just dissociate from it. So, do you feel anymore? No. Okay, you're done. Trust me, you're not done. That shit's going to come back with a vengeance. Okay. So dissociation is one of the ways that we resource people. Now, I'm not going to give you the full lesson. One of the things that we have in Planet David that has been a literal game changer for us is something called the safe place induction. Now, because this is a self-help group, it's not the safe place induction. It's the safe place meditation. Okay? So, before we do the meditation is very, very simple. However, we have to make sure that this safe place is right for you. So I need you to stop for a moment. Close your eyes for me. And I'm going to use some words, and I want you to just allow yourself to imagine what that might be like. Okay? What it might be like. I'm wondering if you could imagine a place that was so absolutely affirming, so accepting of you, so loving, so nurturing, nourishing, forgiving, protected, positive. A place that was so transformationally positive that no negativity, pain, or suffering of any kind could exist there for even a fraction of a second without being immediately vaporized or turned into its opposite. I'm curious, I'm wondering, can you imagine what a place like that might be like? You just nod your head if you can. Because I always wonder when I talk to groups and I talk to people, what might you see when you're in that place? What might you hear? What might you smell and what might you taste? Because when you do that, when you're in that place, when you see what you see, and you hear what you hear, and you smell and you taste what you smell and you taste, there is an amazing, unstoppable, wonderful feeling that you get. A feeling that lets you know you're truly safe. And I'd like you to notice, I'd like you to become aware that there's a place in your body where those wonderful feelings start, where they grow, where they spread from. Take a moment and point to where you feel it. And notice that there's a color, maybe even a series of colors connected to those feelings. I'm curious, I'm wondering what color or colors that might be for you, first impression. And whatever those colors are, imagine a brilliant ball of that energy floating above your head. Notice how the feelings in your body begin to shift and change as with every breath you take and every beat of your heart, that ball of energy begins to grow, begins to expand, begins to fill the entire room from floor to ceiling, from wall to wall, and all points in between. Notice how it wraps itself around you like an amazing blanket of energy. A cocoon, a shield, a suit of armor, insulating, protecting you from all threats, all dangers, real or imagined, while at the same time flooding your mind, flooding your body, flooding your spirit with everything it most wants, everything it most needs, in an infinite, ever expanding and unlimited supply. And when you realize it's true, breathe those amazing colors through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like hot air or helium fills up a balloon. Anchor it in so fully, so completely, no force in the universe can turn it off or take it away. Not even you. And when you realize it's true, test it. Try to turn it off. Try to make it go away. And notice what happens instead. And when you're satisfied, stop testing. Allow those energies to flow through your entire being. Breathe them through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like hot air or helium fills up a balloon. Anchor it in so fully, so completely, no force in the universe can turn it off or take it away. Not even you. When you know it's true, it's locked in. Test it. Try to turn it off, try to take it away. And notice what happens instead. When you're satisfied, stop testing. Allow your head to nod with honest, unconscious movements to let me know. Now in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to scan your body one more time. And this time, I'd like you to become aware of any place in your body where you're holding on to any form of density or tightness or tension. You see, as we move through this game called life, we encounter situations and circumstances and events, people and places who cross our boundaries, violate our trust, overwhelm us physically, mentally, or emotionally. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a situation, sometimes it's an event. But for whatever reason, it was outside of our control or our ability to understand or cope with in the way that we would have liked to. But what's interesting is that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, built into each and every one of us a very special mechanism, a system, if you will, designed to help us survive those times of overwhelm, those times of violation, those times that we like to call trauma. Like a old Ghostbuster movie, it opens up, sucks in all those memories and all those feelings, locks it in a little box, metaphorically speaking, somewhere in our body, somewhere in our spirit, somewhere in our energy field, holding it in quarantine until such a time is guided by the right expertise, equipped with the right technology. We can go back inside and tell our nervous system what to do with those things instead. And when that system goes into operation, those little quarantine files, those little trapped emotions and memories, they take the form of areas in our body that are dense or tight or tense. As you scan your body, you become aware of those areas of density and tightness and tension. I want you to take your all-powerful safe energy. I want you to breathe those colors through that affected area. Let it flow over and around and through those areas like hot water flowing over an ice cube. Notice how those areas begin to melt and dissolve away. Solved, dissolved, and resolved from your body. Solved, dissolved, and resolved from your mind for all the right reasons. And in its place, flows everything you most need and want and desire instead. The perfect remedy, the perfect balance to replace what was dissolved away, to give you the feelings and the understandings and the experiences that you most desire to have the way you desire to have them. Take all the time you need to let that all-powerful safe energy do its job. And when you're satisfied that all those areas have been dissolved away, you can just allow your head to nod with honest, unconscious movements to let me know. And we'll continue with the next part of our process. and great. First. The beautiful thing about a meditation like this is that we can all have the same experience at our own rate, at our own speed, with the understanding that if you're unconscious now, can hear my words, you're unconscious now, can do these processes at its own rate and its own speed, even as the other parts of your brain continue to follow along with me. So throughout the coming days and weeks and months, anytime you want to, anytime you need to, you can summon this all-powerful safe energy. Move it through the areas that most need and want and would benefit from its gentle, transformational, safe and loving embrace. Feel those things begin to melt and dissolve from your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. Solved, dissolved, and resolved from the body. Solved, dissolved, and resolved from the mind, the energy. Now in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to do something very, very interesting. I'm going to ask you to imagine you could float up out of your body and float forward in time 7 days from today. 7 days from June 3rd, 2024. Float down into that future version of yourself. The version of yourself that's been living 7 full and complete days with these transformations only building and growing stronger inside. Float down and see the world through those eyes. Hear the world through those ears. Smell and taste and feel the world through a mind, body, and soul alive with ongoing, ever-increasing transformation. Live a few days in that life and notice what that's like. Notice how you feel, where you go, what's changed, what's different. How good it feels. And notice that there's a place in your body where the ability to manifest this new reality, these new faculties, these new understandings are stored. Where they grow, where they spread from. Take a moment. Point to where you feel that. That's right. And notice that there's a color. Maybe even a series of colors connected to these amazing faculties. Breathe those colors through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like hot air or helium fills up a balloon. Anchor it in so fully, so completely, no force in the universe can turn it off or take it away. Not even you. And when you realize it's true, test it. Try to turn it off, try to take it away. And notice what happens instead. That's right. And speaking to you as this amazing new version of yourself 7 days from today, if you could turn around and look back in time, through the wormhole of time and space, back beyond today, to all the younger versions of yourself, from now, the moment you were conceived, as you look back on all those younger versions of yourself today, what do you know and understand now that those younger versions didn't know? What do you know and understand that would have made all the difference? What were your first impressions? Be as long-winded or short-winded as you want, and understand what that is. And if you could reach back through the wormhole of time and space and teach those younger versions everything they'd ever need to know, to feel, to believe, to experience and understand, that would have made all the difference in the world, what would you share with them? What would you teach them? And when you know what that is, open your arms big and wide and invite those younger versions of yourself to fly forward through the wormhole of time and space into your waiting arms. Hold them to your heart and whisper in their ear everything they're ever going to need to know, to feel, to believe, to experience, to understand, to be as amazing in their time as you are in yours. 7 days from today. And when you know you've got that, breathe all of your colors that you've acquired on your short but powerful journey through all of you at the same time. And feel all of those younger versions in you begin to blend, to merge, to combine, to integrate, synergistically, harmoniously, exponentially more powerful together than any one of you on your own. Until you're one full, complete, United States of you. Take all the time you need to let those processes take place, to integrate and transform. And when you know it's completely changed, impossible to go back to the way it was. Test it. Try to go back to the old way of feeling, the old way of being, and notice what happens instead. And when you're satisfied, stop testing. And just be. Dissolve into this new state, this new awareness, this new understanding. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. As I reach the number 5, you can emerge from this process, bringing all of these transformations, revelations, insights, updates, upgrades with you. Perceiving, believing, manifesting, and achieving, embodying these states in all the ways that are most important for you. Number 1, feel yourself returning to this place we call reality, bringing with you a very different one. Number 2, all of my suggestions from me to you, from you to your very own other than conscious mind, are now 10 times more powerful, 100 times more permanent, 1,000 times more thrilling, fulfilling, and satisfying than ever before. Embraced, held, locked into that part of your mind, body, and soul that most wants, desires, can implement, facilitate, express these changes, embody them completely in all the ways that give you the life that you want, the way that you want it, by your standards, by your definition. Number 2. Number 3, always at least 3 ways to overcome any situation, obstacle, or circumstance that you may face. Because there's always at least 3 solutions to any problem you need to solve. And from this moment forward, your all-powerful other than conscious mind will now easily, effortlessly, and automatically generate those solutions and implement them in the quickest, easiest, most effective way for the good of yourself and all concerned. Number 4. Because it's all for you, my friends. You've made the journey. You've made the investment. You've followed the instructions. You've obeyed the commands. You've tested the results. You've most certainly earned the rewards and the right to keep them. It's your reality. It's your truth. It's your life. You get to live it to the fullest. Starting now. On the next count, you can emerge from this process like a phoenix rising from the ashes, like a butterfly emerging from the cocoon. One phase of your transformation complete. The next phase, best phase, just beginning. Ready to spread your wings, take to the air, to soar amongst the clouds, to experience life, the universe, and everything in it from a much higher place. A more enlightened perspective. Head clear, mind clear, heart clear, thinking, feeling, acting with self-assurance. feeling good all over, glad to be alive and ready to thrive. Number 5, take your time, come on back. Notice how good you feel. Stick a fork in them. All right. I'll give you guys a minute if you have any questions. Or if you guys want to talk about your experience, you're more than welcome to do that. In fact, why don't we just do that? Why don't we take 5 minutes, get in groups of 3 or 4. And when you can actually speak, go ahead and talk about your experiences or what you discovered. Discuss. Come on up. Don't be bashful. Any of our Zoomers coherent enough to ask questions, or YouTubers? Because that's relevant.
I don't know.
I
need my cameras or my mics. I'm happy.
After a while, it's like, okay, I'm listening, but I don't know, being in the zone.
Even on your vision work. This mic and both mics. We're basically just like. So the patient that we're back to this. So you're saying.
Hey, Mark, are you there?
This may be a piece of that, right, represents the all. So we can have release. That's. Right. And every body, I'm trying to catch any vibration back. It's never about vibration. All that. All goes out, it's all in the body location. And the image is there's a somatic. Together, which is what.
And that node, that's the node. It's like the USB port. We can just plug into all the data disseminated throughout the system. Right? So when we point to where we feel it, we're accessing all of the data and it's reconstituting and we can access and change it from within. Mhm. All right, turn around, come on up. All right, so I'm curious, what'd you guys learn? What'd you experience? I know some of you just did not want to talk. That's the post-meditative fugue state, where I either get a cigarette or a cold shower or both, right? So what'd you notice? What'd you learn?
After a while, the colors didn't matter. It was just like.
I don't know where the microphone is.
That's both of them. Oh, wow.
Mr. Bogart over here, huh? Bogarting the microphones again. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
So, yeah, it was all kind of fuzzy, but it felt good towards the latter part of it. It was like being in a nice, comfortable zone.
Good, good. Does it feel safe?
Yeah, very much.
Good, good, good.
Mhm.
So anybody else? No, some of the new, harsh.
So for me, once I started feeling the colors rolling and I could like, wherever I was touching my body, I
Mhm.
could feel the colors going round and round and then unrolling also.
Perfect.
So afterwards, like you were saying things, but it was more safe in that zone. So I was
That's okay.
feeling to be there.
Yeah. See, we're so desperate for that safe zone that the moment we find it, we don't want to go anywhere else. So a lot of you may have found that once you hit that safe spot, you stop caring about what I was saying. That's okay. That wasn't the part I was talking to. Right? But this is a big deal. One of the things that we're always looking for is safety. And so this is something that the more you do it, the stronger it gets. This is another one of those interesting techniques where if you do it once, it's an interesting experience or a parlor trick. But if you practice it every day and have fun with it and do it as often as you can, it becomes a superpower. Because that safe energy that you've created can take the edge off everything. Start having a panic attack, breathe your safe energy through it, boom, done. Right? Because all you got to do, here's the secret, colors destroy colors. Colors transform colors. So you can take, you guys remember, I was just talking to what was your name again, sir? Dean. I was just talking to Dean, he was asking about holographic memory theory. 5 channels of information. How many cortexes do you have in your brain? Well, you have at least 5 sensory cortexes, right? Here's the thing you need to understand about your nervous system. It functions like a prism. It functions like a transducer of vibrational data. I can take data from the visual cortex and run it through the auditory cortex and get sounds. I can take information from the auditory cortex, run it through my visual cortex and get images and colors. Now, this is not an energy class, so I'm not going to tell you about the energetic side of this. Let's just think about it purely from a data processing standpoint. Anything that your system has coded, it can recode. And it doesn't care what the information is. It doesn't care if it's positive. It doesn't care if it's negative. It doesn't care if it's a physical sensation or a mental or emotional one. As far as the system's concerned, it's only data. And that data can be recoded in any form as long as you can access the part that does that. So we have something called the semantic search engine and the semantic rules of semantic engagement, which is where we're going next. I don't have as much time as I would like, but that's okay. Because it doesn't matter how many techniques you get, it's what you do with the techniques you have. So here's the secret. It's on the sign out there. If you can point to where you feel it, you can change it. Because everything that you want to change is a feeling. Everything human beings do is in response to it's a feeling they either want or a feeling they want a whole lot. So you use a feeling to change, you use a color to change guess which is easier to change, feeling or color? You got it, baby. I can take any sensation in the body, transform it into a color, and that color will interact with any other color I can generate. And when it does, the system recodes that information and plays the new experience. You don't have to believe it, you just got to do it. Right? In fact, I don't want you to believe it. Right? The only thing I ask is that you don't actively try to fight it. Because when you get the body involved in the change work, it doesn't matter what your neocortex wants. And this is where we talk about body-centered energy psychotherapy. This is one of the reasons our change work tends to be faster, better, and more permanent than most other people's, right? And it doesn't seem like it should be this way, but I don't make these rules. I just discovered them. First one is somatic engagement. Somatic engagement is a dynamic interaction in the subject's holographic metaphors. What does that mean? The colors. In other words, when I start working with my system and I'm integrating my physical body, my imagination, and my breath, I have to use all three. Because that's the username and password that gets you to the level where you can write the changes. If you leave one out, it gets progressively harder. You start adding words in, unless you know what you're doing, it takes longer. We call this BAK the primary encoding system because everything that we have is written in it. Okay? You cannot communicate to another human being. You cannot formulate the thought to generate words to communicate to another human being without the VAK. It has to come first. Okay, there's cause, effect, meaning, and then VAK is even primary to that. Because the only way we can even make sense of this stuff to ourselves is through visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory metaphor. Those metaphors are just interpretations of vibrational ones and zeros. That's all they are. Okay, but those metaphors that our system creates have meaning to us. Yes, they're embedded with that visual, those 5 channels and the content. That's all there. But then the shapes, like you were asking about earlier, the shapes of those metaphors can have meanings to us too. Our job is to be able to analyze that construct, look at how it built it, decide what's worth keeping and what isn't, and make the appropriate edits. And the more playful you are with this, the better you get at it. Okay? So, anything you're doing, act out the change. There's not a single process that I put you through tonight where I didn't have you pointing at something, reaching out and touching something, right? This is a hallmark of the change work we do. When you get the body involved, it generates a wave, for lack of a better word, an amplitude through the body that it reaches a point where it doesn't matter what the neocortex wants to do, it's going to buy in anyway. So you don't have to believe it, you just have to do it. Okay? Physically act out the change. That's the simplest way to say it. Doesn't matter how you act it out, as long as you act it out. Right? Some of you were twitching during the process. Perfect. Right? That's the body saying, oh yes, I get rid of this. Right? Don't try to stop it. Lean into it. Let the body do it. Right? Somatic address. Every single bad feeling you have has a location. Right? Every single one of those 1 through 3s, if I said point to where you feel it, you go, you instantly know where that was. Every now and then you'll get someone say point to where you feel it and they'll go, that's okay. That just means it's in their energy body. You deal with it the same way. Because eventually, the more you deal with it, the more it starts to do this. So it's re-embodied again, and then you can deal with it fully, right? Remember, the part that it's going to feel like you're playing pretend because you are. Because the part of you that controls this part of you is also the part that plays pretend. That's why you hear me say in all my videos, well, just pretend. It's the instant workaround. Because when you pretend something, your brain is going to go for the closest resource it has to what you're trying to create, which is usually the truth. So it literally recreates what you think is the block, right? And even if it isn't, it's like a puppet string. You're still accessing the issue. So pretending is the fastest way. The more just like when you were a little kid. Anybody here ever been a little kid? Okay. If you can be 5 years old for 10 minutes, you can change just about anything. It's literally that simple, right? If only we'd have been taught this when we were 5. I did teach my kids when they were 5. They were usually screaming at the time, so I don't know how much of it went in. Because I had to fix them, right? Super powerful with 5-year-olds. If we have time, remind me, I'll tell you about how the time my 10-year-old hypnotized her entire class and left them in trance. Not the entire class. She missed 1 or 2. Anyway, somatic bridge. Somatic bridge is really simple. Somatic bridge is where we point to where we feel it inside and we access the field outside. This is a part of your nervous system called your proprioceptive neurology. Everything you're doing has an interoceptive component and an exteroceptive component. That's why when people talk, they gesture. Their hands are accessing filing cabinets out here. It's a literal mirror of what the brain is doing. And once you understand the truth of this, you'll never be able to look at anybody the same way again. Like, I got this problem. I could just figure out where it is. You've all seen this, right? Like, what is that thing? It's right here. Just, oh, there it is, right? Your hand will go to the location where the energetic or vibrational coordinates are that relate to that issue. Now remember, below the threshold of the neocortex, your nervous system treats all that stuff out here that's hallucinatory like a solid object. As far as it's concerned, it's as solid as this desk. Okay? You don't have to believe me. You just got to do it. Okay? So, somatic search engine. This is the big one. Again, and if you come to Identity by Design, or if you come to Unleashing the Magic, maybe in July, I'll show you some really cool energetic shit that doesn't work, but or shouldn't exist, but does. But I might get cursed for showing it, but we'll see. If I suddenly go up in a big mushroom cloud, you'll know I offended the gods. Where was I going with this? I completely open loop myself. That's all right. Somatic search engine. I have this phrase that I want you guys to write down and really, I want you to understand it. Because it's a little hard to wrap your head around sometimes. It's deep. But once you get it, there's like literally no change you can't make. I'm sure there's some physics limitations somewhere, but I haven't found anything you couldn't put a dent in. Okay? And that's this. The answer is always in the question. In the somatic search engine concept, you have 2 search engines that I like to think are in the body. We have one that's called the transderivational search engine. For those of you who come from NLP, you're familiar with this concept of transderivational search, although NLP doesn't go into it nearly as deep as they should have. And then you have what we call the somatic search engine, which is very similar to the TDS search engine. The difference being primarily is that when you use the somatic search engine, when you ask for information, you only get the information that you ask for in the order and sequence that you asked for it. That doesn't mean there isn't other information there. You know that little diagram with the little, these are all, when you access the somatic search engine, you're dipping into that whole container and you're pulling out specifically the information that you asked for. That doesn't mean there isn't other stuff there, right? So the more refined the question you ask, the more comprehensive the resource you can extract, right? I don't know if I have time to do this one. Yes, okay. Close your eyes, put your feet flat on the floor. Put your eyes, put your feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes. Stop for a moment and think about something that you really, 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 really wanted. Now, I'm going to give you some parameters. It was something that you wanted so much that the moment you saw it, you knew that you were not going to stop until you got it. And so you made a plan. And you worked that plan. You put that plan into operation. You went over, around, through. If an obstacle came up, you went over, around, you crushed it. You worked that plan. And then finally, on that fateful day, boom, there it was. You won. I want you to remember that moment of victory. Remember how you were standing. Remember how you were breathing. Remember what you were seeing, what you were smelling, and what you were tasting. And when you do that, when you see what you see, and you hear what you hear, and you smell and you taste what you smell and you taste, there is an amazing, wonderful feeling that you get, a feeling of absolute victory. And there's a place in your body where those amazing feelings start, where they grow, where they spread from. Take a moment and point to where you feel it. That's right, first impression. That's right. And notice there's a color, maybe even a series of colors connected to those amazing feelings. Notice what color or colors that is for you, first impression. And when you know what they are, I want you to reach into that area with both of your hands. I want you to grab all of that color, take it out and hold it in your hands in front of you. Make sure you get it all, because sometimes that shit hides and we don't want to miss a single drop of this amazing, victorious, triumphant goodness. As you look at it in your hands, I want you to look at it with your inner eyes and notice, did the color change or stay the same, first impression? Notice it's moving. It's spinning in a certain direction. What direction is it spinning? Just move your hands in that direction. That's right. Now hold it under your nose. Take a nice big whiff of it. Notice what it smells like. Listen to it. Notice if there are any sounds in it. And don't get freaked out, but go ahead and give it a good lick. Notice what it tastes like. And as you play with it, I want you to hold it in your hands. I want you to play with the direction it's spinning until you find the direction that makes it even better. When you find that direction, I want you to spin it like a wheel in that new direction and double the spin, double the speed, double the force, double the magnitude. That's right. Keep doubling it over and over and over again until it takes on a life of its own, until it's impossible for it to go back the way it was. When you know you've got it, slam it back into that spot. Notice the change. Notice it's strong. Notice as this new program works its way deeper and deeper and deeper into your body. Any program, any belief, any memory, any experience that's not in harmony with this new set of instructions, your neurology is going to begin to shed. It's going to begin to purge like a snake shedding its skin, like old software being uninstalled by newer, better, more powerful software. There's no need to measure it, manage it, or make it happen faster. Just notice the process taking place. Allow it to install itself completely. When you know it's done, it's locked in, test it. Try to bring that old feeling back. Try to turn the new feeling off and notice what happens instead. Many times as this new program works its way deeper and deeper and deeper into our system, our body goes through all kinds of interesting changes and transformations. Some people break out in a sweat. Some people laugh. Some people yawn. Some people cry. Some people twitch. Some people just feel waves of emotion coming up and unwinding. However your body does it, that's just your neurology resetting itself. It's just the emotional detox. There's no need to measure it, manage it, or make it happen faster. Just notice that process taking place. Allow it to install itself completely. And when you know it's done, test it. Try to bring the old feelings back. Try to turn the new feelings off. And notice what happens instead. That's right. And when you're done, when you're satisfied, stop testing, allow your eyes to open. Notice how different you feel. Hallelujah. 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 What'd you notice? Dean, what'd you notice? Color shifts? Right on. Harsh, what'd you notice? You couldn't bring your old thoughts back. You mean you're stuck feeling good now? Yeah. How about that? Give him a big round of applause. Is it really that simple? Yeah. Just took us 5,000 years to figure it out. But now, that's called energy spinning, by the way. If you like complicated names, psychosomatic neuromodulation, unless you're in England. Then they call it neurosomatic energetic repatterning. Because Brits seem to like long, complicated names. Right? We just call it energy spinning. Right? But that's not the point. Yes, it worked. I know. I didn't have to tell. I know it all worked. Jessica, what was that like for you? That's all right. You're just processing. Right? It'll crescendo and it'll.
But it doesn't feel like. Not bad.
No, I know. I get
The vibration that you get when you have panic attack
it's vibration.
without the panic.
Yes, isn't that cool?
Good.
What positive label would you assign to that amazing energy? Exaltation, exhilaration? There you go. What color is that exhilaration? Breathe that spinning green halo energy through your entire body and notice what happens. He's having a good time, having a good time, having a good time.
So how do you phrase the question?
Ah, very good question. So I gave you, when you go back and review the video, because it is going to be on YouTube, pay attention to what questions I asked and when I asked them. So the first thing I said, I'm wondering if you can remember a time in your life when you had X. So I named a topic, right? When you saw something you really wanted. That's file search number one. So your brain, your nervous system went through your entire history, looked for every time you won something or something you really wanted, right? But then I started adding parameters. On a scale of 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, it was a 47, right? More things came to the surface, right? Some dropped, some came up. Then I said, and you made a plan. Now it got even more specific. And you put that plan into operation and you worked that plan. And no matter what obstacle came up, you went over, around, through, whatever, and you worked that plan and boom, one day you realized you got it. Home run, victory, right? Remember what that felt like. Now, what did I just do? I just described a very specific neural circuit. Of all the winning victory things you wanted, there was a specific process that I asked you to have assigned to that, right? So I gave you more and more parameters. Your somatic search engine kept moving files around to find the closest match. Yes? Right? Because I guarantee you, when I said think of something you really, really wanted, something popped up. When I started adding parameters, did it change? That's right. If you ask a generic question, you get a generic resource. If you ask a specific question, you get a specific answer. The answer is in the question. So if I want you to win, what's going to be easier for me? To find a behavior you already know how to do really, really well, or make one up? Because now you can take anything I want you to do, plug it into that process, and you're going to succeed because you know how to do it. The answer is in the question. But then we went one step further, point to where you feel it, right? So we engaged this search engine, and then we said, point to where you feel it. Notice there's a color connected to that feeling, right? Well, the moment I pointed to where I feel it, I just accessed a different part of the system, right? Now I've got a feeling, I've got a color. Reach in and take it out. Look at it. Did the color change or stay the same? How many of you did the color change? How many of you did it stay the same? Does it matter? Fuck no. Why? Because in order for you to calibrate a color change, you had to see it. You had to be focused on it. You had to be absorbed into it, which means as far as your nervous system was concerned, it was this real. In classic hypnosis, we call that somnambulism. right? Instant. But we didn't stop there, did we? Notice it's moving, it's spinning in a certain direction. What direction is it spinning? You all came up with a direction, right? And I had you show me with your hands. Yes? Well, now I've got your body doing something, don't I? But when I asked you for the color and you took it out and it changed, before I asked about the movement, was it moving? Okay, some of you it was, some of you it wasn't. But what happened when I said, notice it's moving? It became much more obvious, didn't it? Your attention was drawn to it. It's moving, it's spinning in a certain direction. How many noticed that it was moving? And then when I said spinning, like, because some of you might have been doing this. And all of a sudden, it's moving, it's spinning. When you once you're inside the container, because that's where you are, you only get what you ask for. Understand? So if I ask for color, that's all I'm going to get. Now, most of the time, the only reason I ask for more information is because I want deeper levels of absorption in the state, process, or experience. I could have gone through the entire checklist of VAK. For 99% of our applications, we never need to go beyond the color and the direction. That's all we need. Because those two things take up the most bandwidth and the most real estate in the brain. The hands and the eyes take up more space in the brain than any other part of your body. But if I've got someone who's not fully engaged in the process, smell it. What happened when you smelled it? How many of you smelled something? Okay, that's fine. When you licked it, ew, right? Even though it was victory, right? Now, you may not have tasted something, but I'll bet a taste popped into your head. Salty? It's all right. You were deep in trance, Jessica. It's okay. She's like, I can't believe this shit works. I can't believe it. I thought he was full of shit. He told me it- Welcome to Planet David. It only gets weirder, right? So, but notice that every time I asked for information, the system supplied it. But was it there before you asked for it? Sometimes yes, most of the time no. That's how the semantic search engine works. You only get what you ask for. And part of that, I think, is an aspect of how the unconscious mind relates to the neocortex. Because you've all heard the concept of 7 plus or minus 2, yes? Okay. Well, it's not actually an accurate statistic, but most people will tell you in the self-help field that the conscious mind can process 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information, per second or whatever, versus the unconscious, which can process millions and billions, right? If I were to ask you to name, 7 types of cigarettes, most of you would start having trouble at about 5. Candy, the same thing, right? So there is this 7 plus or minus 2 chunk size that we have. And one of the reasons that we have that is because if the unconscious mind were to try to spit up all the data that's being processed to the conscious mind, it would completely overwhelm it. You wouldn't be able to take a step. And so it only gives us tiny pieces of information, which is what your neocortex uses to create all the stories that you think are true. But if you think 7 plus or minus 2 at the neocortex versus millions and billions at the limbic and the paleocortex level, can you understand what I mean when I say the conscious mind, the thinking part of your brain, is the least informed and the last to know anything? And the data that it's using to make all those decisions is really low. This is why you can't trust it. At least not with this kind of work. There is a very important function that part of your brain serves. I'm not here to vilify any part of you, but you need to understand that newer part is like the 2-year-old. You ever try to deal with a 2-year-old without setting boundaries? It tries to tell you how to do everything, tries to take over, messes it up, and when the fecal matter hits the rotating oscillator, they're gone, right? That's your neocortex. It's the most flimsy part of you. It's the one that makes you think it's the strongest, but it's the first to check out. The more emotional and neurological arousal you experience, the faster it goes. The more complicated the thought process, the faster it goes, right? It needs to be trained just like every other part of you. But it's been largely running the show for most of your life At least, well, let me say, you think it's been running the show. It's actually your unconscious mind that's been running the show, and your conscious mind is making up stories for how that shit works, which is why you're stuck. Because the stories it's making up have nothing to do with why you're really stuck. And the conscious mind, the unconscious mind keeps sending up flares, and your neocortex keep making stories about it. Right? Remember, if there's something you've had for more than a couple of weeks, if your conscious mind could have solved it, it would have done so already. So here's the thing. Irrational problems require irrational solutions. Right? Do you ever try to speak rationally to an irrational person? How'd that go over? Exactly. But that's what our psychologists keep trying to do. Bandler had it right. He figured out if the person is stuck in their hallucinatory world, why not just make it real and lead them out of it? So if you ever hear the horror stories of Bandler, most of what he's doing is exactly that. He'll find somebody who sees imaginary snakes, and when he's at lunch, he'll go to the pet store, grab a whole bunch of snakes and throw them in the guy's bathroom. So when the guy comes home, walks into his bathroom, I see snakes. Yeah, you've been telling us you've been seeing snakes. No, there are real snakes in here. Really? How do you know they're real? Well, the fake ones have a blue aura around them and these don't. Oh. You make their hallucinations real. You enter their model of the world so you can lead them out of it. And that's all I did with you. I just asked you questions about your inner world and told you what to do with it. And that's about all I have to say about that. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow. Zoomers, YouTubers, love you. Good night. Thank you, sir. We didn't need it. You're very welcome.
You're so incredibly generous. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
You're welcome, sir. Feel free to hang out, eat cookies, candy. Hi, Oscar. I'm David. Nice to meet you, brother. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like one was like
Mhm.
So when I was about how one might how one might guide a child to
June and July are gonna be.
Oh, it's easy. How old's the kid? Okay, I've done this with 5-year-olds. You just have to keep it really brief. So the first thing is point to where you feel it. Close your eyes and look at it. What color is the boo-boo? They're going to give you a color. What color would make it feel better? First impression. Breathe that color through the boo-boo color and tell me what happens. You see him start to just de-escalate. So, scale of 1 to 10, how much is left? Okay, what color is it now? Is it the same color or different? It's this color. Okay, what color would make it feel better? Breathe that color through the boo-boo color. And you just, it's a wash, rinse, repeat. That's the simplest, easiest way. And again, 5-year-olds works like a charm. Because if you gamify it, they'll do it. Well, that's the beautiful part, is that it's not hypnosis. It's just an imagination game.
So how would we? Do this. Excellent door than that. So you would just want to bring them back to the level of awareness, to where it's what and having them consider their name and in reality make you a little bit much. Hey, why are you hitting them? Can you change your perspective? That's not gonna work. But the first thing I'm thinking. Stand like that. Just because your body. Body, and it's a lot easier to get them together. Where? Kind of fast track something. All right, Zoom and YouTube friends, nice seeing you, and see you next time. I didn't want to go.